Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today, as we kind of talked about with some of my posts, if you've been keeping up with those, we're going to talk with Diego, better known to some as Level 9001, DLC Toronto champion with yellow green control or yellow green discard, however you want to think about it. And we're just going to go over his overall Worlds experience, like accommodations, how Disney kind of set him up, talk about Super Sealed a little bit, and then go over his constructive strategy before we take some fan questions too. So, Diego, how are you doing today, man?
Doing good. Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to talk about my whole experience and the future of Lorcana, how everything went at Worlds, and yeah, a lot to talk about.
Awesome. And so I think first we could start out by just like what did those first couple of days look like when you guys arrived on site? I saw they did like profiles and looks like they got a bunch of good shots from you guys just to set up the production. But I'm sure there was some cool stuff there too. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, they really hooked us up. Being only 28 players, they really wanted to focus on us, the players. There wasn't any a public event happening, so they could focus on us. So I got there on the Wednesday, which wasn't the day we're supposed to arrive. We're supposed to arrive on the Thursday, and I just used that extra day to go to Universal Studios. But if you did arrive on the Thursday, they had a private chauffeur pick up everyone from the airport. So they really went all out with that, and then they drove us to where we were staying, which was the beach club resort at Walt Disney World. And if anybody knows resorts at Disney World, this is like one of the nicest ones. It is just a few minutes walk away from Epcot, and the playing area was at a convention center at the beach club. So we were right there, 5 minute walk to get to where we were playing.
So really awesome
So
accommodations and everything the day of. Did you get to go to the park a little bit that for the day before, or was it just like business?
The day before, so Thursday was just relaxed. So like me, I came with my wife. Everybody had a plus one, so that was super nice. And me and my wife were just relaxing. I already had my deck lists locked in. Submitted those. I think it was, yeah, Thursday 6 p.m. was the deadline, but I had it in there before. So we just went to Disney Springs to, do some shopping, eat some good food, and pretty much just relax before we got into everything.
Really cool.
So that was the Thursday, and then leading into the Friday. Friday was the media day. So that's where we did all those, fun videos that you saw during the stream. The whole draw a picture of this card thing that was done that day. So that day was just pretty much we got breakfast, which was provided from them. It was really good breakfast. Uh, all the works, so eggs, sausage, everything you can think of. And I'm gonna tie this in for a little bit later.
Okay.
uh, so the, and then that led into everybody had like a little time slot for a media thing, and then it was just okay, you're free to do whatever you want for the rest of the day. Let's meet back tomorrow morning for the competition. They were going to give us breakfast too. So
Disney's
that
big
was,
money. I kind of would expect them to take care of you guys well. So glad to hear they didn't disappoint in that front, right? Like, at least got a decent
yeah,
breakfast, good place to stay. That's really cool.
yeah, no, it is. And like at this point, can't complain at all. Everything was super great. Saturday morning comes around. They're like, okay, we'll provide you breakfast. But this is where things were like, oh, okay, we got a little bamboozled here. So the Saturday morning breakfast, it was just like, fruits and like sweets. There was no like protein or anything like that,
The
and we were
sugar.
kind of expecting that. Yeah, it was just sugar. We weren't like, yeah, I know a lot of people. Some people were like, "Oh yeah, I just worked out. I came here to like ready to eat a feast and get ready, lock in for the competition." So I know a few of us were pretty hungry come lunchtime, but I think they kind of knew that, so lunch came a little earlier that day. So we did only 2 rounds of super sealed, and then it was lunch. So
It's a pretty early start
yeah,
for that tournament too, right? Like I want to say the streams was supposed to start, and I'll ask you about this, but the stream was supposed to start maybe 8 a.m. Eastern time.
I think probably just like some filler stuff rolling at that time. So
Okay,
no, 9 a.m. was like we're building the super sealed decks.
gotcha.
Um, and just to explain how that worked. So everybody, we walk into this room, and there's a table with 28 booster boxes, and inside each booster box is a Ziploc bag of just already opened packs that were from the super sealed pool.
The
So
pre-screen to a certain degree.
yeah, it was already, and it should like technically random.
Hmm.
There is a possible flaw there. Like it's not fully random. Like say if a judge knew, number 6 was stacked, he could have tipped somebody off and been like, "Oh
For
yeah,
sure.
number 6 is the pool to choose." So I would have liked there to have been at least a bit of more randomness to that, where you choose a raffle, like okay, 6 would go to this guy, and so on.
Were the
But either way, I
cards
think
stamped anyway or anything like that to show that they were Worlds affiliated? I don't know if you came from like Magic background, but you know, with the Pro Tour cards, they would always have the judge stamp the cards, and you knew they were from that particular Pro Tour. Was there anything like that?
no, and we kind of wish that was the case, just because so we just have these memorable cards. But no, they weren't stamps. Every card was listed on a sheet of paper by set. So it would be like set 5. These were all the cards from your pack. Um, that was found within the booster box that we picked. So in
Right.
this booster box, I had the set of cards written out, and then all the cards put in a Ziploc bag, already opened, separated by each set.
What do you think? What do you think of that approach? Do you think it was still fairly? I mean, I know you talked about like obviously there's some exploitive, some parts that you could have exploited there. Was that
Yeah.
otherwise fairly professional, or do you feel like you could have done more there?
Yeah, I think it was like it was pretty good. Like I would say 80% wise, because there's that little bit of you never know. But I think for the most part, everybody was pretty legit. I don't think anyone's gonna risk anything by doing anything shady there. So I think they covered it pretty well. And I know the stamping helps a little, but if every card is listed on a pool, you can technically look at that card pool. Every we look at each other's deck list before a
Hmm.
match. So if anybody tries to put in any other card that's not in that pool, you can call that out.
I know from the viewer's perspective, we were kind of expecting, hey, we're going to see some of these deck building, we're going to have some coverage there. I don't know if they just didn't have the cameras out or if they just didn't have like a good plan to show that. For coming from other card games myself, and I'm sure you have been as well. Like the footage of how you're building the deck and stuff like that, thought process going into would have been really good for coverage. The first thing we saw from our perspective, like through Zan and I want to say Frank Kirsten on camera, and they're just we're just saw them looking at each other's cards for like 10 minutes on camera. It was kind of uneventful. Like they made it they showed it for the camera a little bit, but it was like we're looking at a sheet of paper, we're looking at somebody looking through somebody's deck list on a camera. So they didn't really have good shots or anything like that there. Did you get a sense of how they was going to look on camera, or was it just like build your deck and then jump into the matches?
Yeah, it was pretty much just build your deck, because I don't think they had enough. Like I think there would have had to been a camera at each table looking at what we're doing the whole time. There wasn't really I didn't even notice if they had somebody going around looking at our specific pools or anything like that. So it probably would have just been a lot of work to get that done.
Yeah, for sure. And this being their first time, it makes a lot of sense. They may not have had that set up. So I'm not complaining so much. It's just it was very a little bit a little awkward moment before the matches. And unfortunately, we didn't see yours, or at least I didn't see any of yours on sealed. But well, let's transition and talk about sealed a little bit. So, what
Yeah.
did you practice this beforehand? What kind of was your approach going in?
Yeah, so I did practice quite a bit in person. So I bought a bunch of packs, and just to get the feel of that, building decks over and over again was pretty good. And playing it, obviously, like before I even played Super Sealed, my mindset was different. And then once you start playing it, you start to realize, oh, okay, this is working out. And what works out is most of the time Amethyst and steel were kind of like the go-to picks. Those were the top two colors that I think majority of people would go to, and then it would be there's emerald and ruby as well that are good.
What makes amethyst and steel kind of those top picks in this particular format? Whether commons or uncommons you were drawn towards that were kind of just game breakers?
Yeah, the amethyst is just like in general just has a lot of card draw. There's removal with moving damage counters. There's a lot of evasives. So like majority of the time when you're opening these packs, you're gonna run into, oh, I'm separating a bunch of like playables and unplayables within a color.
Mm-hmm.
Amethyst, the playable pile is always stacked. Like there's a lot of those 3-4 bodies on a 3 cost. That's good enough for sealed. And then there's still just you have evasives, you have a lot of card draw and everything that you need in amethyst. And then steel, there's a lot of removal. There's evasive cards on your turn. So like that genie 3-4 in set 8, that's really good and sealed. And there is other card draw too that you can find, and that's where and just thick characters. So I know like there's a lot of 5-6 characters on a 5 cost, and stuff like that just really is good for sealed.
You came in kind of thinking Amethyst is gonna be good, fleshed out really well with commons and uncommons, a lot of playable, decent bodies with good effects. That damage moving, like you said, card draw, like probably going to be there, and then just looking to flex into what Ruby or Emerald you said were the other two.
Yeah, and those are usually where I would lean into. That's where the majority of like my deck building in practice happen. So it just depends on what you get. I for my pool, I ended up with Amethyst, Steel, Emerald,
Okay.
and like it kind of just built the deck built itself once you start looking at those cards. So it's kind of like some of my bombs were I had Genie, the 2-4 evasive. I had a Dock. Uh, draw 2 cards is amazing once your hand's low. I had a Gontu, the 4-3 5 cost that quest for 4. That when a lot of times you play a character they can't be dealt. Um, they get in one quest, so Gontu is able to get in one quest for 4. That's pretty great.
Really reasonable body too,
Um,
like the 5/4.
yeah, exactly. So there's yeah, I also had Magica Dispel, the
The
new
green
5
purple,
cost 3-3.
yeah,
Yeah, the
she's
green
she's
purple.
really good and limited. I've played a lot with her too.
Yeah. So cards like that, like you also look at your dueling cards, and that usually is a big deciding factor. Like if I had Mushu, the red steel card, that card is amazing and limited. And if I had that card, okay, now I'm like, all right, now I'll look at Ruby and see how that works. So there are a lot of good dueling cards that might choose you to pick a certain color.
Did you feel like it was pretty skill testing because of the color dynamic? I know a lot of people kind of, I'm sure, figured out that amethyst is going to be like a really signpost. Is going to be probably the most playable color based off what I've talked to some other people, and you're kind of confirming here. But do you think the 3 color situation with that card pool was skill testing versus like a regular Lorcana limited? I don't know how much you played of that, but curious what you think.
Um, I think it is skill test. It's more just experience too. Like I kind of felt like some people might have not have actually practiced super sealed as much there, because they might have leaned towards certain cards or certain colors that probably the majority wouldn't have chose that did actually get their reps in. So I know like amber is pretty much a dead color in super sealed. Um, you might find a few good cards, and like in a rare pool, you could have like say you have 25 good amethyst cards and 30 good steel cards. You might want to top it off with 5 amber cards. That could happen, but generally amber was just never the go-to pick. And some people ended up did choosing amber, and I know some of them didn't do too well. I think Zach Bivens chose Amber, and he did do well, but from what I heard, it was just like a few Amber cards sprinkled on top.
Do you think it was possible to kind of break from, and I'm sure you played limited, like a regular kind of limited, right? No color restrictions, that kind of stuff, where you're just drafting the best card. Like we're just kind of taking, like you said, solid bodies, good effects, or kind of have this mid-rangey game plan. Do you think in this super sealed you could actually take maybe an aggressive tent or maybe take a more controlling pattern and actually deck build a little bit more as opposed to just taking good solid limited cards and kind of throwing in a pile and hope it works out?
Yeah, and I think yeah, there was room for I would say that's just like more of a bold strategy. If you open the right pool and you're like, okay, I can go the full aggro evasive route, let's build to that. And yeah, it would probably take a better deck builder to look at your pool and be like, okay, now I can pivot from choosing auto amethyst and auto steel, and I can go this different route. The opponent, so I went 2-1 in sealed.
Okay,
Um,
that's my next
I felt
question. That works out great.
yeah, I felt pretty good with my pool just because some of the cards that I opened, I'm like, okay, this is gonna work out. Um, the guy that I did lose to, he went a little unconventional, and he was red, green, and amethyst, and he had a heavy evasive package. So the once you see that, you could probably make it work, and you know what to run. So he had like fidget, the 2/3 gives other cards evasive, and that just snowballed in the game that I was against him. I didn't draw into my evasive characters that could take out his. So it was just if you want to go that route, you can definitely go that route. I know in testing, my teammate Ferrante, he built a deck that almost got me, and he had amber in it. It was amber, purple, and I want to say red or steel. I forget which one it was, but once again, it was just like hyper aggro, super evasives. And y- when you're throwing a 2 cost on the board and that quest for two, and you're doing that at like every turn, and especially if you're on the play, you're probably going to win. But it just takes I had the pixie dust item that gives card evasive and challenger +2, and
Oh,
I also
nice.
had another card that um, when it quests it exerts. I think it's Madam Mim. So everything that he was playing, I was able to answer, and that that was the only way I could actually combat his deck. He was stuck at 18 lore, and everything he was playing was just getting destroyed right away. So, but that was like the only way I could answer that. And if somebody went that like route of just okay, I'm going to build my deck hyper aggressive, it's hard to deal with if you don't expect it.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were kind of surprised that they went with a limited format, and especially a new limited format at Worlds. Hopefully, from my perspective, I'm hoping that limited becomes more of a conscious decision and not just an afterthought for Lorcana. Because limited in other games is like some of my favorite gameplay, but locally, and it kind of our vibe and with people I played with before is just like, well, we open evasives, we open bombs, and we'll win. If not, it's hard to leverage your skill sometimes. With everyone can play everything. For draft a little bit more than sealed, and this kind of sealed, with having to actually make some critical decisions, it seems like a better way to go. Obviously, it's pretty hard for people to do this in their local stores, like just the amount of packs that are involved in it. But do you think it's something they'll repeat again at kind of these premier level events?
Uh, it's hard to say. Like maybe not super sealed. Does take like it was just kind of thrown at us. It was hard to practice for it first of all because you would have to get all those packs
Oh
if you're
yeah,
trying to do it in person. Even doing a simulator, it's not the same feel. But maybe if they, it would be nice if they introduced it somehow into a DLC, just or made it more of a friend center. Like I, I wasn't really into sealed before Worlds, and then I found a new appreciation to it afterwards after practicing a lot. And like I do like the format. I feel like there is room for there to be like, especially when it comes to deck building and making a nice skilled deck and then able to pilot it. There's room to show your skill expression there, but at the same time, some of these, if in Super Sealed, if you're just opening the best packs ever, like I know somebody that went, I think 3-0 in sealed. He just had like the god curve. Like, what can you do when it almost looked like he was
Yeah.
running a constructor deck?
Yeah,
So
Carson's
some,
decks looked pretty solid when we were looking at him. It's like, oh, I don't know how Dan wins these games. Like
yeah.
he had like Genie, he had several bomb rares as in colors. It's like, oh well, fuck's the fuck, I guess, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can get super lucky and just open this crazy card pool, and it's just not fair, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
I think it's something
so
that they can build sets with limited in mind. But we'd have to kind of change rules, like especially like just being able to play everything. Maybe incorporate more packs and do have these color restrictions. But it felt like they were testing stuff on you guys, you know, for future events. Like, you know, what can we get away with? What are the takeaways? So, um, yeah, I guess the takeaway from you is kind of what you just said, right? It's like, you know, this was just kind of thrown at you. It's hard to practice. It's not practical to do in your locals, that kind of thing. So, any other
yeah,
cap offs for you say for Super Seal before we move on to talk about Little Rocket Constructed?
yeah. Um, it was a good experience, but I don't see it being around for the next Worlds. But hopefully they figure something out. Um, then more than just the normal one deck constructed and incorporate that into DLCs somehow or
Makes sense.
leagues.
Yeah, for sure. I know people love more limited. They want to see it. So hopefully it looks, you know, the future improves.